Thank you very much for being here. I'll try to share with you a little bit of our experience in developing and launching a consumer product under the name of SOLOS. I have a little bit of a sample here. We're demoing it outside. And hopefully in the next few slides, I'll be able to share some of those experiences if you're thinking of creating your own product or launching your own product in this space. I joined Copen, the parent public company. You saw probably John Pham present earlier. They've been around for 35 years, and my job when I joined the company was taking a lot of the core technologies that I have been developing for the past 30 years in the military space and enterprise space, and figuring out what we could do in the consumer space, right? What technology makes sense, what technology doesn't make sense. And for that, we looked at a bunch of different market categories. As you all know, the AR space, for confusing as it is highly fragmented, right? So if we wanted to divide it in by blocks, we saw that there's always this trend on going from lifestyle all the way to the professional side and whatnot. And there's always this question of fashion versus functionality and what is the right balance given the applications. So for us to get those insights and understanding, we develop a bunch of concepts. I'm a Media Lab alum, so the theme here is like demo or die, right? So create those demos, understand a little bit of the functional requirements for that specific market segment that you're targeting, and then evolve that into a reference design or a complete solution. Some of these designs and references have been actually licensed by other companies to deploy in their own work, and that's mostly the business model from Copen. But that's not actually what I intended to do during my stay at Copen. So I decided to take a little bit step farther and see where can we have a better understanding of what will make the consumer market tick. And for that, we turn our head into the health, wealth, well-being market, sports, being the largest growing category in wearables for the past decade. We saw that that would be a great opportunity for us to continue evolving this notion of AR and smart glasses or smart headsets. But we had to narrow it down to what would be the market opportunity. Of course, we wanted to make a business case out of what we were doing beyond just a simple experiment on an engineering level. So we looked at this cycling, triathlete, running market as a great opportunity with millions of participants, typically are very keen as early adopters of new technologies, especially performance driven. So having that said, we went ahead and moved from just a purely concept design or reference design into a complete brand and product that grew within the organization and launched commercially last summer. I was actually here last year talking about this and promising that it will be there in May. So we deployed that commercially, and we're currently in the marketplace. You can order these things online through our own website. No, that was the commercial part of the talk, by the way. But it's tangible. It's here with a very specific set of requirements. But what made that cool is what we tried to analyze, like where in that space of wearables did we want it to play that will give us the flexibility of growing into other categories and expanding our roadmap of products within the SOLOS architecture to other market segments, both from a product standpoint, from a branding standpoint, and also from a technology roadmap that will serve Copen, the parent company that does displays, to deploy into other markets. So we wanted to play in this performance training, broad measurement type of wearable space rather than a narrow lifestyle focus, which if you may, all of you guys probably know, it's a very hard space to penetrate, especially when fashion and aesthetics and other things are sometimes more valuable than the technology or functionality itself. But one of the things that we also wanted to bring to mind is be respectful of the market adoption phases, right? This graph was proposed back in 2014. I don't think the categories are wrong, but we have seen that it has been taking longer than usual. But I think we still have to go through the technology enthusiasts, early adopters, before we can claim success in a mass market. And focusing on a niche vertical to understand what those functional requirements are from the different dimensions that having a successful product in the marketplace will require was one of the key objectives of deploying SOLOS in the marketplace today. So we had to look at the competitive landscape and do this audition of all the plethora of products that you had out there, all the way from, the lifestyle or pretended to be lifestyle kind of products to the more dedicated type of smart glasses. And what were the sensitivities around design, user experience, and whatnot, so that we can educate ourselves while designing and bringing this product to market. And of course, being in a display company like Copen, we had to pay very close attention to the different technology architectures that will make sense for the space. Throughout the day, you've seen a lot of executions on things like HoloLens or Magic Leap, and there's different type of technologies of display architectures that are meant to do a special type of job. Not that it's wrong or right, it's just every single technology has its place depending on the market that you're looking into. And if I wanted to sort of interpret this and map it out in some way or form, we have to identify or at least recognize that AR today, and I put AR, augmented reality, is not a discrete or fragmented system. It's actually a whole spectrum of products that are closely correlated to the user experience that we want to provide to the end user, right? And I try to map out what that would look like in a non-constrained environment versus a controlled environment and the complexity of the immersion, right? And if you keep on going up that curve, you'll see that you start getting into these virtual reality worlds, right, in a controlled environment. So this is just an example, an evolving graph of trying to map out and make sense of what to pay attention to when you're deploying or developing this type of product. And it's just very important to recognize that there's a very strong cognitive element to the information that you're consuming. As we see the evolution from tablets, laptops, cell phones, smartwatches, what is the next revolution or the next implementation on information consumption? We believe that is in and around the head with smart devices, but we have to be smart enough to deploy those technologies in the particular segment that we're trying to target. And of course, urban or lifestyle is quite challenging for all the factors that I mentioned before. And as I said, there are other factors or insights that you have to consider while trying to deploy this. Going back to the example of where we're looking at sports, we had to look into the traditional versus the new cool, right? We cannot override the mass market appeal of the products that they purchase. We also have to understand what are the trade-offs in terms of usability, right? We're in wearables, so comfort is huge, key. If I'm not willing to put it on, who cares about what the technology is gonna bring to me, right? So just keep that in mind. And at the end of the day, if we wanted to make a business case, what are people willing to pay for, right? Today we see this trend, people are paying for performance, virtual coaching, at least in the healthcare space. So what technologies or what product will make sense for us to bring this? And that's why we looked into this cycling or triathlete runners market for our particular product solution. But we were not alone in this quest. We were lucky enough to partner early in the stage with the US Olympic team, Team USA, in their preparation for Rio. This was a stealth program with other partners, particularly IBM, bringing all the heavy power of IBM Watson AI, but consolidate all of that into the athlete's head so that they can perform better. So in a very short period of time, we were able to train, develop the product, and launch it with them around Rio, and that evolved into what it is today, SOLOS smart glasses. Just to give you a sense of where we are today, we conceptualized the product and kicked it off halfway through 2015. In 2016, we launched this with the partners in IBM for the Rio. We received all that feedback from the pilot production in 2017, evolved the product, and did a mass market launch commercially in 2018, partnering again with Ironman, for those of you familiar with the triathlete space, trying to continue to evolve step by step the market adoption cycles that I described before, right? Technology enthusiasts to Kickstarter, early adopters, and moving on. And now we have our eyes in 2020, no pun intended. So, but out of all of this, we had to extract back some of these principles or framework that will help other products or other market segments. So here's where some of my background comes in. It's not just about the product and the technology. It's about how we can develop a real human technology integration system, right? It goes beyond just the simple interface as we see it today. And for that, we have to be paying really close attention to the seamless experience that we want to give to that. And what is the right balance between design, interface, function, depending on each one of the use cases that we're looking at. But all of those are built in some building blocks that I believe are very important, independent of what market you look at. And I've broken them into three. The first one is think about the system or solution that you're bringing in. That it has to have enough intelligence to really understand the user's intent, right? What does that mean? Well, depending on the vertical that you're looking at. But it's important to understand what the intent of that user is going to be so that you can build that intelligence behind it. Communication and interaction. For that, what I meant is you have to develop a system that enables the user to basically grasp or understand what that benefit for him is or that value. So enabling a communication channel, by both tactile, visual, audio, is critical so that you can have a very cohesive interaction mechanism with the end user. I know that this is a little bit philosophical, but and we can discuss more out there. And the last building block, which I think is what makes commercial sense, is enhancement of behavior, right? At the end of the day, we want to provide a value to the end consumer. It's not just a toy, it's not just something to feel good. If that's the value, then that's great. In our case, it was about performance. So by continuously using the product and having this AI engine in the background, working together with you as a user, having the audio-visual feedback delivered to you with this augmented reality set of glasses, we're able to provide and guide you to a valuable situation, right? Beyond what you will get from a simple sensor. And that's where we believe we are today. But most importantly, and quite simply, is one of the biggest insights that we had with this type of technology is making it personal. And what I mean by that is, at the end of the day, each individual user will need to create an experience around themselves where they find this a valuable proposition. Today, the eyewear solution, this has more than just the ophthalmic correction of my eyes. It tells something about myself. There's been centuries of evolution of what this means for people, but now we want to make it smart. And what does that mean in this space, right? And there's notions of permanence and usability, temporal, that I love to discuss. But at the end of the day, we want to deliver an individual experience through a standardized piece of hardware. And I think that's one of the critical challenges that today we have in the space of bringing these kind of core technologies into the consumer market. And with that, I'm done. So thank you.
Thank you, Ernesto.